Chapter 5. While Dwayne Hoover listened to West Virginia, Kilgore Trout tried to fall asleep in a movie theater in New York City. It was much cheaper than a night in a hotel. Trout had never done it before, but he knew sleeping in movie houses was the sort of thing really dirty old men did. He wished to arrive in Midland City as the dirtiest of all old men. He was supposed to take part in a symposium out there entitled, quote, "The Future of the American Novel in the Age of McLuhan," end of quote. He wished to say at that symposium, quote, "I don't know who McLuhan is, but I know what it's like to spend the night with a lot of other dirty old men in a movie theater in New York City. Could we talk about that?" He wished to say, too, "Does this McLuhan, whoever he is, have anything to say about the relationship between wide open beavers and the sales of books?" Trout had come down from Cohoes late that afternoon. He had since visited many pornography shops and a shirt store. He had bought 2 of his own books, Plague on Wheels and Now It Can Be Told, a magazine containing a short story of his, and a tuxedo shirt. The name of the magazine was Black Garter Belt. The tuxedo shirt had a cascade of ruffles down its bosom. On the shirt salesman's advice, Trout had also bought a packaged ensemble consisting of a cummerbund, a buttonniere, and a bow tie. They were all the color of tangerines. These goodies were all in his lap, along with a crackling brown paper parcel containing his tuxedo, 6 new pairs of jockey shorts, 6 new pairs of socks, his razor, and a new toothbrush. Trout hadn't owned a toothbrush for years. The jackets of Plague on Wheels and Now It Can Be Told both promised plenty of wide open beavers inside. The picture on the cover of Now It Can Be Told, which was the book which would turn Dwayne Hoover into a homicidal maniac, showed a college professor being undressed by a group of naked sorority girls. A library tower could be seen through a window in the sorority house. It was daytime outside, and there was a clock in the tower. The clock looked like this. The professor was stripped down to his candy-striped underwear shorts and his socks and garters and his mortar board, which was a hat which looked like this. There was absolutely nothing about a professor or a sorority or a university anywhere in the body of the book. The book was in the form of a long letter from the creator of the universe to the only creature in the universe who had free will. As for the story in the Black Garter Belt magazine, Trout had no idea that it had been accepted for publication. It had been accepted years ago, apparently, for the date on the magazine was April 1962. Trout found it by chance in a bin of tame old magazines near the front of the store. They were underpants magazines. When he bought the magazine, the cashier supposed Trout was drunk or feeble-minded. All he was getting, the cashier thought, was pictures of women in their underpants. Their legs were apart, all right, but they had on underpants, so they were certainly No competition for the wide-open beavers on sale in the back of the store. "I hope you enjoy it," said the cashier to Trout. He meant that he hoped Trout would find some pictures he could masturbate to, since that was the only point of all the books and magazines. "It's for an arts festival," said Trout. As for the story itself, it was entitled, quote, "The Dancing Fool," end of quote. Like so many Trout stories, it was about a tragic failure to communicate. Here was the plot. A flying saucer creature named Zog arrived on Earth to explain how wars could be prevented and how cancer could be cured. He brought the information from Margo, a planet where the natives conversed by means of farts and tap dancing. Zog landed at night in Connecticut. He had no sooner touched down than he saw a house on fire. He rushed into the house, farting and tap dancing, warning the people about the terrible danger they were in. The head of the house brained Zog with a golf club. The movie theater where Trout sat with all his parcels in his lap showed nothing but dirty movies. The music was soothing. Phantasms of a young man and a young woman sucked harmlessly on one another's soft apertures on the silver screen, and Trout made up a new novel while he sat there. It was about an earthling astronaut who arrived on a planet where all the animal and plant life had been killed by pollution, except for humanoids. The humanoids ate food made from petroleum and coal. They gave a feast for the astronaut, whose name was Don. The food was terrible. The big topic of conversation was censorship. The cities were blighted with motion picture theaters which showed nothing but dirty movies. The humanoids wished they could put them out of business somehow, but without interfering with free speech. They asked Don if dirty movies were a problem on Earth, too, and Don said, yes. They asked him if the movies were really dirty, and Don replied, as dirty as movies can get. This was a challenge to the humanoids, who were sure their dirty movies could beat anything on Earth. So everybody piled into air-cushioned vehicles, and they floated to a dirty movie house downtown. It was intermission time when they got there, so Don had some time to think about what could possibly be dirtier than what he had already seen on Earth. He became sexually excited even before the house lights went down. The women in his party were all twittery and squirmy. So the theater went dark and the curtains opened. At first, there wasn't any picture. There were slurps and moans from loudspeakers. Then the picture itself appeared. It was a high-quality film of a male humanoid eating what looked like a pear. The camera zoomed in on his lips and tongue and teeth, which glistened with saliva. He took his time about eating the pear. When the last of it had disappeared into his slurpy mouth, the camera focused on his Adam's apple. His Adam's apple bobbed obscenely. He belched contentedly, and then these words appeared on the screen, but in the language of the planet. The end. It was all faked, of course. There weren't any pears anymore, and the eating of a pear wasn't the main event of the evening anyway. It was a short subject, which gave the members of the audience time to settle down. Then, the main feature began. It was about a male and a female and their 2 children and their dog and their cat. They ate steadily for an hour and a half. Soup, meat, biscuits, butter, vegetables, mashed potatoes and gravy, fruit, candy, cake, pie. The camera rarely strayed more than a foot from their glistening lips and their bobbing Adam's apples. And then the father put the cat and dog on the table so they could take part in the orgy too. After a while, the actors couldn't eat anymore. They were so stuffed that they were goggle-eyed. They could hardly move. They said they didn't think they could eat again for a week, and so on. They cleared the table slowly. They went waddling out into the kitchen, and they dumped about 30 pounds of leftovers into a garbage can. The audience went wild. When Don and his friends left the theater, they were accosted by humanoid whores who offered them eggs and oranges and milk and butter and peanuts and so on. The whores couldn't actually deliver these goodies, of course. The humanoids told Don that if he went home with a whore, she would cook him a meal of petroleum and coal products at fancy prices. And then, while he ate them, she would talk dirty about how fresh and full of natural juices the food was, even though the food was fake.